Hello again. Welcome into 1017 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Almost grinning like a Chessy cat down there is PLPC Carla McCormick.
I'm tired. It's the end of the week.
I was going to ask you if you know if that was a kind of a
yeah, a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, since we're not on Fridays anymore, Thursday's kind of our end of the week.
Well, we'll be back on Fridays. We're taking a brief interlude during the high school football season for
football break.
Little football break.
Yeah, a little football break. We got to let Tim Fletcher kind of come in and do his thing on Fridays. You know.
Womp womp.
Well, yeah, and you've already heard his voice. There he is, Rapid Ruben Wright, our producer.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening to you, sir. You've had a kind of a week too, huh?
It's been long.
Yeah,
I'll say that. I'm recovering though.
Have either one of you, either yourself or known someone, been close to someone, loved someone, who struggled with I'm enough, or the opposite of that, I'm not enough? You know, have you?
Yes.
That resonate?
Of course it does.
Well, we're gonna talk about that this evening. We have a very, very special life strategist. She's New York Times best-selling author Kristen Higgins. She's got a brand new book out, and I tell you, this thing caused a stir before anybody ever got a galley copy of it.
Ooh, do tell.
Yeah, well, I'm going to, but you're going to have to hang on for the story. Folks, thank you for tuning into Strategies for Living. We are presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. I've been helping individuals and families now for 60 years. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place, Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. Back in a moment to meet New York Times best-selling author Kristen Higgins talk about her brand new book. Good luck with that. No, really.
I love the title.
We'll be back. If we're talking addiction prevention, And welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Let's welcome to the program now New York Times and USA Today best-selling author, nearly 20 novels, which have been translated into more than 24 languages, have sold millions of copies all over the world. Her books have received many awards and accolades. She is a 6-time nominee for the Kirkus Prize for Best Work of Fiction. She is Kristen Higgins, New York Times best-selling author. Miss Higgins, welcome. Welcome into Strategies for Living.
Thank you, Dave. It's so nice to talk to you again.
It is so good to talk to you. We should tell people that I do another little program, and you and I talked previously for that program, and I said to you, hey, Kristen, this is something you've got to come on my evening program with Carla. And we got to talk more about this. So thank you for...
Kristen, he's been bragging on you all day.
I have.
Thank you.
This new book, good luck with that. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I've been knocking around. I've been doing this show for 25 years. So, I've talked to a lot of authors and publicists and stuff like that, Kristen. Maybe it's happened before, but I don't know it. I don't know of a novel that has stirred and challenged and gotten the passionate dialogue going so much about a subject that the publisher says to the author, okay, you got to go out on the road before we ever publish this thing. But that happened here, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. This book is about food and family and friendship, I like to say.
Yeah.
But it's also about something that every woman wrangles with, and that is body image and self-esteem and how closely the two are linked.
Yeah.
So I wrote 3 characters, Emerson, Georgia, and Marley, and they are all overweight women in America. And
they actually met each other back when they were teenagers.
Right, at a weight loss camp.
Yeah.
And so it's been this lifelong problem for them, or an issue made by our society. It's a society that loves beautiful people and a society that also loves food. And so these women struggle with coming to terms with the fact that they will never be that size or look that way, and accepting the fact that they're just fine exactly the way they are. And as you said, it created quite a stir. One of the characters, Emerson, weighs more than 600 pounds in the beginning of the book, and she dies from complications related to obesity right there in Chapter 1. And there were a lot of people who had a problem with that, with an idea of a character who succumbs to her food addiction.
Yeah. Now, did you struggle with? Do I take this? I mean, this is a universal struggle, and I know you and I talked about this before. You're writing this as a women's struggle, and it truly is. But I think it's a man struggle too, don't you?
It is, and in fact, there's a character in the book who's a 14-year-old boy dealing with the same issues that women deal with. I think it has become more of a man's issue in recent years, where men are being subjected to the same kind of messaging that women have endured for 100 years.
But Kristen, isn't it strange, or don't you see the difference? And I don't know that, and I don't mean to single out David, but women's relationships, and David and I were just talking about this, are so strange sometimes. I can tell my girlfriends my deepest, darkest secrets, or what happened last night in bed, but I would never tell my good friend she looks fat in those jeans.
That's right, and it is a difficult subject to talk about. It's very emotional. We carry the baggage that we were brought up with, the messages that our moms and dads gave us, and it is really, it's almost like a guilty secret not to be happy with how you are, because on the one hand we have all these messages about women empowerment and women can be anything and do anything, and of course that's true, and it's who you are that matters. And yet we're also bombarded with these messages of you have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
You have to be beautiful. You have to be slim. You know, everywhere you look, there's ads for weight loss regimes and, you know, images of these extraordinarily beautiful people in the media, on TV, and the movies. So it's really hard to balance both of those things and to get to that place where you can put aside those messages of, I'm supposed to look a certain way, and really, truly embrace the idea that I am valuable and special and enough just the way I am right now.
Yeah. Was this more of an because you've written a lot of books? Was this more of an evolutionary coming to good luck with that, or was it kind of revolutionary? Did it just kind of go, whoop, there it is?
Well, I think it was both. You know, I mean, I'm one of those women who has been all over the charts with self-esteem and as it relates to body image. And I really wanted to write a book that was raw and honest and also joyful and uplifting, dealing with this subject. And I think it was coming, you know, in terms of looking at my past few books, thinking about how we value people and the assumptions we make when we look at them, and I felt like the book's time had come.
You certainly tackle the elephant in the room, don't you?
I think so. You know, I think that while a lot of people will write about plus-size characters as, you know, very happy with how they are, and that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's where we all want to be. We haven't really dealt with characters who struggle to get there and who admit that because of those double messages, because you think, like, oh, it's shallow to think I have to lose weight for this award ceremony or this wedding coming up. And yet most of us do that.
Yeah.
Kristen, I haven't read the book yet, but I will. But do you tackle the issue of the prejudices that the women face because of their weight?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that I think is really eye-opening for people who don't see it, to see that you know, when you're a plus-size woman, you get treated differently by just about everyone, by men who might want to go out with you, by men who don't want to go out with you because you're a certain size, by people who view success as looking a certain way, and by the medical community, you know, where if you're overweight, that's the first thing they talk about when you walk into the doctor's office.
Well, even the diagnosis, that Emerson had. I mean, what do we call it? Morbidly obese?
Right.
Yeah.
Or super morbidly obese.
Or yeah.
Even worse,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have a way of talking about it in a compassionate way. And I think a lot of people will look at a character like Emerson and say, "Why did you do that to yourself, and how did you get there?" And what I wanted to do in this book was answer that question. You know, the power of food and how it's just as much of an addiction as alcohol or opioids can be.
Yeah, but we deal with it differently. We think about it differently, don't we?
Yeah, that's a great point. We do. I think that people look at someone who's morbidly obese and say, well, you're just lazy, or you don't know how many calories that piece of cake has. Whereas with opioid addiction or alcoholism or even cigarette addiction, we think, oh, we understand. You know, there's a chemical change that takes place. And we don't give food addicts that kind of sympathy or compassion.
I actually work with some of the morbidly obese, and it always strikes me, and one of the things that I didn't ever realize until I did start working with them is how invisible they feel. You know, one of the clients that I worked with after she had lost, 100+ pounds, talked about, just being in a place like Walmart or Target and people actually looking at her and speaking to her now. You know, like "Have a good day" or "Where are the beans?"
That's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and it's something I didn't even ever know or realize, and I think what a sad statement it is for us as a you know, as a nation and as a community.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, that there is a difference in the way that you get treated and seen. You know, that invisibility factor, or worse, being too seen. You know, so that strangers feel free to comment on your size or what you might be buying or eating, and there's such judgment about people of size. And so I wanted to show Emerson as a character who is, you know, wonderful, intelligent, insightful, lovely character who is also a food addict, and very tragically and early on in the book she loses that battle with addiction. And I wanted to show also Marley and Georgia and their wonderful friendship, how powerful that friendship can be in identifying the qualities about a person that makes them worthwhile.
We've got a lot to talk about this evening with Kristen Higgins, New York Times and USA Today and Wall Street Journal, best-selling author. Good luck with that, is her brand new novel at your favorite bookseller right now. We're talking to her this evening here on Strategies for Living. Stay with us. More to come. Addiction takes Welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, our life strategist this evening, Kristen Higgins, the author of Good Luck With That, at your favorite bookseller right now, out from Berkeley. I'm looking here at the computer screen in front of me, and all of the titles. Your book titles fill up the screen. Now that you mention it, on second thought, The Perfect Match, The Best Man, If You Only Knew, Anything for You. I could go on and on, but I that would take the hour. Do you know ahead of time, like with this new novel, Good Luck With That, Kristen, do you know ahead of time what the title is going to be, or does it jump out at you at some place in the writing?
That's a great question. I try to give my publisher a title, and I do kind of wait for the book to speak. Usually it's a phrase that indicates some kind of double entendre about the book. So for this one, Good Luck With That, that's a phrase we usually say when we doubt that the person is going to be able to succeed. Like, oh, I'm gonna get my degree, my master's degree next year. You say, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and try, but we're not holding our breath here. And for Georgia and Marley in this book, what they take on after Emerson's death is the challenge that Emerson has left them in her dying days, which is to overcome the insecurities that they've had because of their size, and because of their lack of confidence in themselves due to size. And it's a monumental task. It's asking them to do a lot, to rethink how they are in the world, how much they're going to speak out, the commonly held beliefs that we all hold on to. So what they're given is this huge task, and you think, yeah, good luck with that, ladies. But they do it. They get through it.
Yeah.
And on the last page of the book, that phrase takes on a different meaning when they have broken through and when they have succeeded after a lot of struggle and self-examination and re-examining of old relationships. They make it.
Now let's see. Georgia actually does a transition within the book, right? Didn't she go to law school?
Yes, Georgia is a bit of a chameleon. She goes to law school. She gets married to this wonderful guy, Raphael, and then her marriage kind of implodes based on actions that she herself takes. She's been raised in this household where looks mean everything.
Yeah.
And here she was, always an overweight kid, always criticized by her mom, and she is just unable to accept the love and the image that her husband has of her as this wonderful, intelligent, desirable woman. And so her marriage is doomed to failure from the get-go. She leaves the law and she starts teaching preschool, which she absolutely loves and does very passionately. She's one of these women who it took her a while to figure out where she was meant to be in the world.
Yeah.
First career-wise and then personality-wise. What is her value as a person?
Now, Marley's an interesting character because she's a personal chef, right?
Right. Marley, who is a plus-size woman, and I leave it to the readers to decide how much she weighs or what size she wears.
Well, yeah, you don't ever tell the weights.
I don't, because I do for Emerson because I want it clear that this is a person who is disabled by her size.
Right.
And we know she weighs more than 600 pounds. For Marley and Emerson, I leave it to the reader. But we know that Marley shops at plus-size stores and considers herself a fat woman. But she has a great relationship with food. She's a personal chef. She cooks healthfully. She eats healthfully. And every once in a while, she goes out for cheesecake with her mom, has a drink with her friend. She's kind of that epitome of moderation in all things. And she's also very healthy. She loves to run and go to the gym, do yoga, take Zumba. And she's really the person who's made peace with her body. She realizes this is how she is, and it might be as good as it gets, and she can spend the rest of her life fighting against that, or she can be happy.
You know, Carla, Kristen, I'm going to throw a question out, and it's one that I don't expect either one of you to answer, but I'd love for you to respond to the question. What do you consider overweight?
Go first, Carla.
You know, I don't know that I've thought about what I consider overweight.
I know. That's the reason, and I'm saying I don't expect you to answer that question with a number, but isn't that an important question for us to consider? And isn't that, Kristen, maybe something that you were trying to stir?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the answer for me is, you know, I look at some of my friends, or I look in the mirror and I think, you know, I'm certainly not perfect, and my doctor would probably tell me to lose some weight. But I look at some of my friends who consider themselves obese, and I think you're lovely. I think you're plump and delicious. You know, I think you're quite attractive. Your body size is quite appealing. And so I think it's a very personal question. But for me, I would say that when you start to have difficulty with your daily tasks because of your size, that's when it becomes something that you might want to address. Not by weighing a certain number or being a certain size, but in self-care, you know, in being able to walk up the stairs and not be out of breath. That's probably something that we could say everybody wants.
How are we doing on, you know, you put right in front of us, you write the pink elephant in the room, food addiction. You put it out there. How are we doing with it as a culture? Are we doing better than, let's say, we did a decade ago? Are we doing worse? How are we doing?
I think we're doing better. I think there's more science and more of the medical community understanding how difficult it is to lose weight, how unrealistic it is in our society to weigh what we weighed when we ate the plants that we grew in our garden, you know.
I'm going to do something that I don't do often, Kristen.
Okay.
I disagree with you.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I disagree with you.
And I don't often either, but I was going to say, I think we want to believe that we're doing better.
Yes, and that's what I think.
And I think the facade, you know, that let's see, we're doing better, and now we've got plus size models and blah blah blah. But what I see day to day in the clinic and when dealing with women, the reality is, and having daughters also, is that we're not.
I think you want to think that, Kristen, and I think that's wonderful for you. But I even think that even our medical community, we have in our psychiatric counseling community, and I'm putting myself front and center here. I'm not criticizing anybody else. I'm talking about myself. We have a ways to go. I think we have a long way to go.
Even in our education. I mean, even in the way we're.
I never got one. Of course, you did some graduate hours after I did, but I never got one thing. I can't remember one thing that was mentioned about food addiction.
Well, maybe little, like, you know, one chapter. But when we talk about advanced addiction work, we didn't work with, you know, all of my knowledge working with food addicts
has come on the job.
Has come on the job working with you know, Dr. Barnes, who does, you know, gastric bypass surgeries. You know,
right.
and
you know, I agree with you that on an individual basis, I think that maybe we haven't seen the progress, but there are studies out there. There's books like Healthy at Any Size.
Yes.
The Science of Fat. I think that we're getting there because we can't deny the reality that we're an overweight nation, and it's not laziness and ignorance that's making us this way.
What did you hear when Berkeley put you out there on the tour prior to Good Luck with That being published? What kind of things did you? What kind of places did they send you? Did you go? Did you go to the colleges and the high schools and the civic clubs and things like that? And what kind of things did you hear?
Well, we went to we started with the bookstores, and so we started with bookstores that hosted book clubs, mostly female based, and some of them were associated with colleges and that kind of thing. But mostly we were looking for the raw reaction, the everyday person's reaction to the book. And what I heard was, this is me. I've been these women. I see myself in all three of these women. And sometimes it was really hard to read about. But when you finish the book, the takeaway is so positive and uplifting that I've had readers say, this book has done what years of therapy has failed to do, and I view myself differently now. I'm done with trying to be a certain size and hating myself because I'm not. And that's been just so beautiful and overwhelming and humbling to me, because I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write this book for myself, for my little girl self who was always considered chubby or fat, and for the self that always said, you have to lose weight for this event, you have to lose weight, and life will be better, and more people will like you. So it was a very personal book. But I also felt that if I feel this way, there's got to be other people who feel this way too.
Yeah.
And the overwhelming response has been, yes, absolutely.
Now, on Emerson's deathbed, she left something. She left a final wish. When we come back, can we talk a little bit about that final wish that she gave to her best friends? Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Kristen Higgins, New York Times best-selling author, brand new book. You're going to want to get this.
I'm about to get on Amazon right now.
Good luck with that. No, really. Good luck with that.
Thanks.
We'll be back. Where you go for rehab. Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living, 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL, PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, and our life strategist, New York Times best-selling author Kristen Higgins. Her brand new book, Good Luck with That, at your favorite bookseller right now, out from Berkeley. And, okay, so Emerson passes away, but she leaves a final wish, Kristen, for her best friends, for Georgia and for Marley.
Wait, do we need a spoiler alert, or can I hear this?
No, it's early in the book, Carla,
okay.
So no worries.
Okay.
So what does she wish?
Well, the girls met, as you said, when they were 17 years old at weight loss camp. And on the last day of camp, before they went off to college, they made a list. And the list was called Things We'll Do When We're Skinny. And it's filled with these adolescent projections of the things you'll be able to do when you're a certain size. Thin privilege, if you will. And some of the things on the list are very shallow, like get a piggyback ride from a guy.
Yeah.
But what that means on a deeper level is someday we'll have a guy who'll want to give us a piggyback ride, and we'll be small enough that we won't hurt him by jumping on his back, and we'll be spontaneous and adorable. And these things on the list, some of them are more meaningful, like tell off the people who judged us when we were fat. And Emerson asks them, do the things on the list, which they had completely forgotten about in these years that have passed. They made the list, went home and forgot about it. But here it is after all these years, and Georgia and Marley have to look at the list. They've promised Emerson they would do what she asked, not knowing what that was.
Right.
And they look at the list and they recognize that innocent longing to be accepted and to be accepted based on how you looked, which is such a teenager girl thing to do, and I think a teenage boy thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
What strikes me as so sad is that the longings of a 17-year-old can still be the longings of I don't even know how old the characters are, but I'm assuming a 40-year-old. That you still need that sense of whatever you were looking for then.
Yeah.
That's so true, Carla. I was recently up for an award for another book, and we have a big award ceremony. It's kind of like the Oscars of the romance genre, and here we all are, all women, accomplished, published. Many of us are mothers, and we were talking about, we were on this little email loop, and we were talking about the gowns that we would buy, because it's one of the rare occasions where you get to wear a gown. And about half of the women said, I'm going to go on a diet before this ceremony because I don't want to be on stage at the weight that I am now. So they aren't 17, but they're still thinking the same thoughts. And again, I think sometimes to admit that makes you feel ashamed or shallow that you still care. And yet, how can you not care when we're surrounded by these messages that are showing, fit at 50, look at Julia Roberts or Sandra Bullock, or Halle Berry, who happens to be the exact same age as I am, these women whose livelihood depends on them looking a certain way. And we look at that and kind of feel less because we're not as beautiful or as slim.
You do not at all romanticize anything about Emerson and her weight and her issues. You talk about how hard her day-to-day life is, her isolation and the lies that she tells herself and other people, her constant obsession. Did you have somebody that you modeled her after, Kristen? How did you nail that?
Well, I I didn't model her on a specific person, but of course I do know people who are food addicts. I think everybody does, and we know people who are disabled because of their weight. We see them every day, and I didn't want to romanticize it. There's healthy at any size, and then there's I'm killing myself with food, and that's what Emerson was doing over a long period of time. And I think what I wanted to show was it's not about the food. The food is her drug, and she's trying to smother these things that she's never dealt with, her grief over losing her parents, things that happened to her as a child, her loneliness, the judgment of people, her own self-loathing, and she tries to bury that in food. And again, as we were talking earlier, we're very sympathetic to alcoholics or even heroin addicts. We understand that. And I wanted to show that food can be just as powerful a drug and have just as damaging effects. So I didn't want to romanticize it because it's addiction, and addiction is not pretty.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be romanticized.
You've got the men in here too. We've got Raphael, we've got Will, we've got Hunter, we've got Evan and Camden and George's father. You don't leave us out, do you?
No, I don't. And it's interesting, how men view weight differently. I think Will and Rafe are examples of those men who really don't judge as harshly as we women judge ourselves. They're both men who find overweight women quite attractive. Mm-hmm. It depends on the woman.
Yeah. Georgia cannot accept Rafe's.
Right.
Yeah, she can't. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting the dynamic. Yeah.
And Will, who is on the spectrum, he calls Marley fat in one scene, and she's so offended, even though she calls herself fat. But she says, fat is a 4-letter word. Will, you can't call a woman fat. And he's so confused because he says, but you are.
Yeah, he's on the spectrum. He doesn't get it.
Right, and he lacks social graces. But then there are the men who also judge or lead by example, like George's father, who's a wonderful father to her, never discusses her weight or encourages her to lose weight, or he just never brings it up. But he married 2 very physically beautiful women and very small women. And so that's a message that Georgia gets too.
Yeah,
and
it may be unconscious or subliminal,
right.
But it's a message. Yeah,
exactly. And then Camden and Evan are men who do judge women on their looks, and I think it's very easy to do. You look at a person and you make an instant judgment. Are they attractive? Yes or no? And in Camden's case, the answer is yes, but I don't want people to know that I think she's attractive.
There's so much here, and I again, as a therapist, I think, and Carl, I don't want to speak for you, but I mean, this book is so rich. You didn't leave the family system out of it either, because you've got one family system that embraces and is just loving Marley's family, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they love food. They show their love with food. They get together to eat, as so many families, including my own, do.
Yeah.
You show your love for someone by cooking their favorite meals. And Marley, who lost a twin when she was 4 years old, is a big girl, and that's celebrated when she's a child.
Yeah.
They love that she's a big, strong, strapping girl.
Yeah.
They love that she comes back for third.
What is it? Was the saying, never trust a skinny cook?
Right.
Good luck with that. New York Times best-selling author Kristen Higgins. Folks, you got to go get this book. Good luck with that. We'll come back and spend our remaining moments with New York Times best-selling author Kristen Higgins today on Strategies.
But I heard you let that little friend of mine.
If we're talking addiction prevention, education, and treatment in Shreveport-Bossier for 60 years, we're talking about CADA. Let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about getting your life back. The Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, CADA, has been helping individuals and families in Shreveport and Bossier City for 60 years now. CADA provides intensive residential treatment as well as outpatient services too. CADA treats women with children, pregnant women, adolescents, veterans. CADA has helped thousands and thousands of people in North Louisiana from just about every race and ethnic background, every socioeconomic level, across every class line. CADA has helped single mothers, attorneys, teachers, nurses, doctors, construction workers, musicians, you name it. Life is better on the other side of recovery. Call 222-8511 or www.cadanwla.org.
When you're
Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, New York Times best-selling author Kristen Higgins, our life strategist this evening, the author of Good Luck with That. Kristen, I got to ask you, some people say, I got a book in me. I need to get this thing out. There may even be some people listening to us that have actually written some stuff and shoved it under their beds. What would you say? What would you say to anybody listening out there who says, I've got a book in me? What would your message be?
I would say start it, because the one thing that every published author has in common is that we weren't published once. We were all in your shoes, where we thought, I wonder if I could write a book. I'm dying to give it a try, but I'm afraid. And I said, don't be afraid. Go for it. You never know what that path will lead to.
You have been prolific. You've done so well. You're award winning. Is there a secret? Is there a secret to writing? Is there something that we need to know that we don't know?
I don't have the answer to that. I think there's hard work, there's timing, there's luck, there's talent, but I think the most important attribute any writer has is authenticity. That you can listen, that you find people interesting, and that you want to tell their true stories.
That's pretty good.
That's
good. Pretty good. So we're almost out of time, but Kristen, I have one more question. How was your book received by, the self-help groups, the Weight Watchers, and the groups of people that
great question.
That are suffering?
Yeah, it's been received beautifully. I mean, I think that people have thought, I've struggled with weight all my life, and I've had these thoughts in me, and somebody has given voice to me. And the message of self-care versus weight loss has been really powerful, even to the point where just the other day I was on tour in Dallas, and a dietitian came up to me and she said, 90% of my clients come to me for weight loss, and almost every one of them fails because we're talking about weight loss. And your book really gave me a new way to think of it, not weight loss, but taking care of yourself on all fronts, not just on being a certain size.
Yeah. Wow. Kristen Higgins, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you, David. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and you too, Carla.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait to read the book.
Thank you.
I can't wait, and I hope you will, think of strategies again after you do your next book. In your next book, we'll have you back again and again.
I hope so. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Folks, in the meantime, what can you do? Well, you can engage in the conversation that Kristen Higgins is stirring and offering all of us into, with good luck with that. That is available right now, alongside probably a lot of our other books. The Good Luck with That is out from Berkeley at your favorite bookseller. Go get it. Carla, you've done it again.
Oh, this was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Ruben, you've done it again.
I have done it again. And a quick sidebar. Did you notice that Carla gave the "We're almost out of time" cue tonight? Yeah, you're getting the hang of this. You're turning into a radio nerd.
It's impressive. It really is impressive. Folks, thank you for tuning into Strategies. We've been brought to you by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana, by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Kristen Higgins, for Carla McCormick, for Ruben Wright, I'm David McMillan. See you next time here on Strategies for Living.
Breaking news and trending talk. This is 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. KEEL, Shreveport.